My mom kicked me out for her new family. Now she's broke and wants me back 8 years later because I'm successful. I'm not sure where to start with this mess, but I need some outside perspective. I'm 28M and own several auto repair shops. My mom Laura recently contacted me after 8 years of no contact, and I'm honestly confused about how to feel. Some background. My dad, Carlos, died when I was 12 in a workplace accident. Mom was devastated and struggled a lot those first few years. She worked double shifts at the diner to keep us afloat, and I have nothing but respect for how hard she fought for us during that time. I tried to help however I could, taking on odd jobs around the neighborhood and keeping my grades up. When I was 15, Mom started dating Danny, a construction foreman she met through mutual friends. At first, I was genuinely happy for her. She smiled again, laughed at dinner, seemed like her old self. Danny was nice enough to me, took me fishing a few times, helped with some school projects. Nothing felt forced or fake about it. They got married when I was 17, right before my senior year. Danny moved in with his 2 kids from his previous marriage, Anna who was 14 and Jade who was 12. Suddenly our small 3-bedroom house felt cramped with 5 people. Mom suggested I could move to the basement to give the younger kids the bedrooms upstairs. Made sense at the time. But things started changing gradually. Family dinners became less frequent because Danny's work schedule was different from what Mom was used to. Weekend activities shifted to things Anna and Jade preferred. I understood they were trying to blend the families, but I started feeling like an outsider in my own home. The real turning point came during the spring of my senior year. I had been accepted to community college for automotive technology and was excited to tell everyone. When I brought it up at dinner, Danny immediately started talking about how expensive college was and whether it was really worth the investment for a trade program. He suggested I might be better off getting a job right after graduation and maybe doing night school later. Mom didn't defend my plans. She just nodded along and said we should think about it more. That hurt more than Danny's comments because she had always supported my education before. Graduation came and went. Mom and Danny attended, but I noticed they seemed distracted and left early for Jade's baseball game. My best friend Tyler's family took me out to dinner afterward to celebrate, which meant a lot but also highlighted what I wasn't getting at home. The summer after graduation was tense. I was working at Murphy's auto shop during the day and taking a few night classes, paying for them myself. I'd come home tired and often found the family had already eaten dinner or made plans without me. When I brought this up to Mom privately, she said I was being too sensitive and that everyone was just busy adjusting to the new family dynamic. In August, Danny pulled me aside for what he called a man-to-man conversation. He explained that now that I was 18 and graduated, maybe it was time for me to think about getting my own place. He wasn't kicking me out, he emphasized, just suggesting I might be happier with more independence. He even offered to help me look for apartments and said they could help with the first month's rent. I was shocked and hurt, but Danny made it sound so reasonable. He talked about how this was a natural progression, how most kids move out around 18 anyway, and how it would give Anna and Jade more space during their important teenage years. When I talked to Mom about it, she seemed reluctant but ultimately agreed it might be best for everyone. Looking back, I realize how manipulative the whole conversation was, but at 18 I just felt confused and unwanted. Within a month, I had moved into a tiny studio apartment across town and was working full-time while taking night classes. The first few months were incredibly difficult. I was barely scraping by financially and felt completely abandoned by the only family I had left. Mom would call occasionally and suggest we get lunch, but something always came up: Jade's soccer tournament, Anna's choir performance, Danny's work emergency. The lunch plans were canceled more often than they happened. By Christmas that year, I realized I hadn't been invited to any family celebrations. When I called Mom to ask about Christmas dinner, she seemed surprised and said she assumed I would want to spend it with friends since I was living independently now. She invited me over almost as an afterthought, and when I arrived, it was clear they had already exchanged gifts as a family unit without me. I stayed for dinner, but the conversation revolved around Danny's work, Anna's high school drama, and Jade's sports. When I tried to share updates about my classes or work, the topic quickly shifted. I left early and spent the rest of the evening at Tyler's house, feeling more alone than I had since Dad died. Over the next year, contact became increasingly sporadic. Mom would text occasionally asking how I was doing, but when I tried to make concrete plans to see her, there was always some reason it wouldn't work. I started to suspect they were actively avoiding including me in their lives. The breaking point came when I found out through a family friend that Mom and Danny had taken Anna and Jade on a week-long vacation to Florida over spring break. They hadn't mentioned it to me at all. When I confronted Mom about it, she got defensive and said it was a spontaneous trip and they didn't think I could get time off work anyway. That's when I realized they had completely written me out of their family narrative. I wasn't being excluded accidentally, it was intentional. They had created their perfect little family unit of 4, and I was just an inconvenient reminder of Mom's previous life. I made the difficult decision to stop reaching out. If they wanted a relationship with me, they could make the effort. Months passed without any contact from their side, which confirmed what I suspected. They were perfectly happy without me. I threw myself into work and school, determined to build something for myself since I clearly couldn't count on family support. Murphy, my boss, became like a father figure and taught me not just about fixing cars but about running a business. When he decided to retire 3 years later, he offered to sell me the shop with owner financing. It was scary taking on that much debt and responsibility at 21, but I was hungry to prove myself. I worked 16-hour days, built relationships with customers, and slowly grew the business. By 24, I had paid off Murphy's loan and was looking to expand. I never heard from Mom during these crucial years. No congratulations when I bought the business. No check-in calls during the stressful early months. Nothing. It was like I had never existed. But word gets around in a small town. People talk, especially when the kid who got kicked out of his family starts doing well for himself. I'm sure Mom heard through the grapevine that I was successful, but she never reached out to acknowledge it or express any pride in what I had accomplished. 2 months ago, everything changed. I was at my main shop late on a Thursday evening doing paperwork when Mom walked in. I hadn't seen her in person for over 6 years, and she looked older, more tired than I remembered. She was alone. She started with small talk, commenting on how nice the shop looked and how impressed she was with what I had built. It felt forced and awkward. Then she got to the real reason for her visit. Apparently, Danny had left her 3 months earlier. He had gotten involved with a coworker and decided he wanted a divorce. The messy part was that Anna and Jade, now 22 and 20, had chosen to maintain a relationship with Danny rather than Mom. They blamed her for the marriage falling apart, though she insisted it wasn't her fault. She was facing the divorce alone, dealing with lawyers and dividing assets, while also coming to terms with the fact that the kid she had prioritized over me for years had essentially abandoned her when things got difficult. Mom broke down crying in my office, telling me how lonely and scared she was. She said she had made mistakes in the past but hoped we could rebuild our relationship now that she understood how much family really meant. I listened without saying much, honestly feeling a mixture of sympathy and anger. Part of me wanted to comfort her because she was clearly in pain. But another part of me was furious that she was only reaching out now that she needed something from me. She didn't directly ask for money during that first visit, but she did mention how difficult things were financially with the divorce proceedings. She also talked about how proud she was of my success and how much she regretted not being more supportive during my early struggles. I told her I needed time to process everything and that we could talk again soon. She hugged me before leaving, and I could feel how desperate and fragile she seemed. Since then, she's been calling regularly and suggesting we meet for dinner or coffee. The conversations are pleasant enough, but I can tell she's building towards something. Last week, she mentioned how much the divorce attorney was costing and how Danny's financial support would be ending soon. Yesterday, she finally got to the point. She asked if I could help her with some expenses while she gets back on her feet. Nothing major, she emphasized, just enough to cover rent and basic bills for a few months while she looks for work and finalizes the divorce. The request itself isn't unreasonable, but the timing feels calculated and manipulative. Where was this concern for rebuilding our relationship when I was struggling at 19 and could have used emotional support, let alone financial help? Why is family suddenly important to her now that Danny and his kids have moved on? I'm successful enough that helping her financially wouldn't be a burden, but I can't shake the feeling that I'm being used. Again. If I help her now, am I just enabling the same pattern where she only values me when it's convenient for her? But she's also my mother, and the only family I have left from my original life with Dad. Part of me has always hoped we might find our way back to each other someday. I don't know what the right thing to do is here. Any advice would be appreciated. Update 1. Thank you to everyone who responded to my original post. Reading your comments helped me see the situation more clearly. A lot of you pointed out patterns I hadn't fully recognized myself. I decided to meet with Mom again to have a more direct conversation about everything that happened and what she was really looking for from me now. We met at a neutral location, a coffee shop downtown, and I came prepared with specific questions. I had spent the week since my post really thinking about our history and what I needed to understand before moving forward. I started by asking her directly about the decision to have me move out 8 years ago. I wanted to know if she truly believed it was in my best interest or if there were other factors involved. Mom became defensive immediately. She insisted that Danny had been right about it being natural for 18-year-olds to live independently and that they had only been trying to help me grow up. When I pressed her about why Anna and Jade hadn't been expected to move out at 18, she said their situations were different because they were still in high school and adjusting to the divorce from their father. I pointed out that I had been in my senior year when they started pressuring me to move out, and that I was also adjusting to major changes in our family structure. She didn't have a good answer for that. Then I asked about the years of minimal contact and being excluded from family activities. This is where things got heated. Mom claimed that I had been the one to pull away and that she had tried to maintain a relationship, but I was always too busy or seemed uninterested. She said my responses to her calls and texts were short and that I seemed to prefer spending time with my friends over family. This frustrated me because I remember it completely differently. I reminded her of specific instances where plans were canceled or where I wasn't invited to things at all. She either claimed not to remember or said there were valid reasons that I was taking too personally. The conversation was going in circles, with her deflecting responsibility and rewriting history. I realized she genuinely seems to believe her version of events, which is almost more disturbing than if she were intentionally lying. Finally, I asked her directly what she wanted from me now and what kind of relationship she was hoping to rebuild. She talked about wanting to be close again, spending holidays together, having regular contact like we used to before Danny came into the picture. She said she missed having me in her life and wanted to make up for lost time. But when I asked about the financial support she had mentioned, she became vague and defensive again. She said she wasn't asking for charity, just temporary help from someone who cared about her while she got through a difficult transition. I told her I needed to think about everything we had discussed and that I would be in touch soon with my decision. The conversation left me feeling drained and frustrated. It was clear that she still doesn't take full responsibility for what happened between us, and I'm not sure she's capable of the kind of honest reckoning that would be necessary to rebuild trust. Several of you in the comments mentioned that her timing seemed suspicious, and after this conversation, I'm even more convinced that her primary motivation is financial need rather than genuine desire to repair our relationship. I'm planning to make a decision soon about how much contact I want to have with her going forward, if any. Update 2. Things have escalated in ways I didn't expect, and I'm honestly feeling pretty overwhelmed by everything that's happened in the past few weeks. After my coffee shop conversation with Mom, I decided to take some time to really think through what kind of relationship, if any, I wanted to have with her. I talked to my therapist about it, started seeing someone last year when business stress was getting to me, and also reached out to Tyler's family, who had been like surrogate parents during my early 20s. Tyler's mom Megan had some interesting insights. She reminded me that during those first few years after I moved out, Mom had called her several times asking about how I was doing and whether I seemed okay. This surprised me because Mom had never mentioned staying in touch with Megan, and it suggested she might have been more concerned about me than she let on directly. But Megan also confirmed some of my memories that Mom had disputed. She specifically remembered Mom declining invitations to events where I would be present, saying it would be too complicated with Danny and the kids. Armed with this information, I decided to give Mom one more chance to have an honest conversation. I called her and said I was willing to meet again, but only if she was prepared to acknowledge what had really happened between us and take responsibility for her choices. She agreed, seeming hopeful that I was opening the door to reconciliation. We met at the same coffee shop, and I came prepared with specific examples and dates. I also brought a timeline I had created of our contact over the years, showing the pattern of canceled plans and minimal communication. This time, I was more direct and less willing to let her deflect. When she claimed that I had been the one to pull away, I presented evidence to the contrary. When she said Danny had been acting in my best interest, I asked her point-blank whether she believed that now or if she had just gone along with his preferences to keep the peace. Something about my approach must have been different this time, because she started to break down. Not the manipulative crying from our first meeting, but genuine emotional collapse. She finally admitted that Danny had pushed for me to move out much earlier than she was comfortable with, and that she had gone along with it because she was afraid of losing him too after losing Dad. She said she convinced herself it was best for me because the alternative was acknowledging that she was choosing her new family over her son. She also admitted that over the years, she had often thought about reaching out to me more directly but was ashamed of how things had ended and afraid I would reject her. The longer it went on, the harder it became to bridge the gap. This was the first real accountability I had heard from her, and it was both relieving and painful. Relieving because it validated my memories and feelings. Painful because it confirmed that she had consciously chosen Danny and his kids over me. I asked her why she was reaching out now, and whether it was primarily about the financial difficulties she was facing. She was quiet for a long time before answering. She said that losing Danny and having Anna and Jade choose him over her had forced her to confront how disposable she had made everyone feel, including me. She realized she had repeated patterns from her own childhood where love felt conditional and people could be easily replaced. She said the financial stress was real and that she did hope I might be willing to help, but that the bigger motivation was not wanting to spend the rest of her life having pushed away the only person who had ever truly been her family. This conversation felt different from our previous ones. More honest, more painful, but also more real. I told her I appreciated her honesty, but that I needed time to figure out what kind of relationship was possible between us now. I also told her that any financial support would have to be separate from the relationship question, and that she shouldn't expect one to depend on the other. We've been texting regularly since then, mostly surface-level check-ins, but with an underlying tone that feels less forced than before. But here's where things got complicated.
This past Tuesday, Anna called me.
I hadn't heard from her since I moved out 8 years ago. She's 22 now, working as a dental hygienist, and living with Danny and his new girlfriend. She said she had been thinking about our family situation and wanted to apologize for how I was treated back then. She said as a kid, she didn't understand the dynamics, but that looking back, she could see how unfair it was. She also said that Danny had been talking negatively about Mom since the divorce and that she was starting to realize he had been manipulative during their marriage too. She and Jade were beginning to question some of the narratives they had accepted about the family situation. Anna asked if she and Jade could meet with me to talk about everything that happened and potentially rebuild some kind of sibling relationship. I was completely caught off guard by this. I had written off Anna and Jade years ago and never expected to hear from them again. But the conversation felt genuine, and she seemed to understand that they had been complicit in excluding me, even if they were young at the time. I agreed to meet with both of them next week. Now I'm dealing with the possibility of repairing relationships with not just Mom, but also with Danny's kids who I had considered my step-siblings during those crucial teenage years. It's a lot to process. Part of me is hopeful that we might be able to build something positive from all of this mess. But another part is scared of getting hurt again and wondering if I'm being naive to even consider it. The financial question with Mom is still unresolved. She hasn't brought it up again since our honest conversation, but I know she's struggling. I'm leaning toward offering some limited help with the understanding that it doesn't obligate me to anything beyond basic human decency. I'll update again after I meet with Anna and Jade.
Update 3.
The meeting with Anna and Jade happened yesterday, and it was both better and worse than I expected. We met at a restaurant in the town where they live with Danny, about 45 minutes from my place. I got there early and was honestly nervous about seeing them after so many years. Anna is now a young adult who looks a lot like Mom did at that age, and Jade has grown into this tall, serious-looking guy who reminded me of Danny in some ways. The conversation started awkwardly, with all of us trying to figure out how to address the elephant in the room. Anna took the lead, which was fitting since she had initiated the meeting. She started by saying that she and Jade had been talking a lot since the divorce about their memories of when I lived with them, and they had realized that some things they remembered as normal might have actually been pretty messed up. Jade, who was always quieter, said he remembered feeling confused when I suddenly wasn't around anymore, but that Danny had explained it as me choosing to be independent. He said it never occurred to him at 12 that I might not have wanted to leave. Anna brought up specific incidents that I had honestly forgotten but that apparently stuck with her. She remembered Danny telling Mom that I was getting too old to be part of family movie nights and that it would be better if I found other activities on those evenings. She also remembered Danny suggesting that Mom shouldn't help me with college expenses because it wouldn't be fair to use family money for my education when Anna and Jade would need support later. Hearing these details from their perspective was validating but also painful. It confirmed that Danny had been systematically pushing me out while making it seem like natural family evolution. Jade said he had always looked up to me and was hurt when I stopped being around, but Danny and Mom had explained it in ways that made it seem like my choice. He said he tried to ask about me occasionally over the years, but the responses were always vague and eventually he stopped asking. This was hard to hear because I had assumed Anna and Jade were happy to have me gone and get more attention from Mom and Danny. Learning that they had actually missed me and been confused about my absence changed how I viewed that whole period. But then the conversation took a more difficult turn. Anna said that part of why she wanted to meet was to understand my perspective, but also to ask if I might be willing to help Mom financially. She said they felt guilty about the situation but that neither she nor Jade were in a position to provide significant support. I was immediately frustrated by this. Here I was thinking we were having a genuine conversation about family relationships, and it turned out to be another attempt to get me to bail Mom out financially. I asked Anna directly if the emotional outreach was genuine or if it was primarily motivated by Mom's financial situation. She insisted it was genuine but also said she was worried about Mom and thought I was the only person who could really help her get back on her feet. Jade was more direct. He said he felt like they owed me something after years of benefiting from a situation where I was excluded, and that helping Mom now might be a way to balance things out. I appreciated his honesty, but it also confirmed my suspicions about the timing of all these reconciliation efforts. I told them both that I was glad to hear their perspectives and that I was open to rebuilding relationships with them, but that any financial decisions regarding Mom would be separate from the family dynamics. I also said that I found it troubling that even this conversation seemed to circle back to money. Anna got defensive and said they weren't trying to manipulate me, just that Mom's situation was urgent and they didn't know what else to do. I asked them why they weren't considering providing support themselves if they were so concerned. Anna said her salary as a dental hygienist wasn't enough to help significantly, and Jade is still in college. Then I asked the question that had been bothering me: why weren't they asking Danny for help? He had been Mom's husband for years and had presumably benefited from her support during their marriage. This is where things got really interesting. Jade admitted that Danny had actually been financially controlling during the marriage, and that Mom didn't have much in the way of independent savings or assets. Most of what she had